So it looks like the new big Solar Auxilia launch box will be £125, €160 or $210. At that kind of price, is it looking like a good deal or not? Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking Games Workshop big boxes once more, and in this video I thought we'd go through the Solar Auxilia Battle Group, the big launch box for the forces for the Heresy era range, but I feel like there's easily enough interesting models here to have at least a few 40k players interested. This box set was one that was revealed a little while back. I believe they showed it off at the Las Vegas Open previews alongside all those new fruits. We kind of knew that Plastic Solar Auxilia were coming for a while now. They were heavily hinted by their Legions Imperialis release and then confirmed by the teaser trailer at the end of December. But this is the first place that they'll actually go live on sale. First coming in this Battle Group launch box and then a bunch of their other kits following down the line. They have shown off quite a few others already. This one will go up for pre-order on Saturday the 2nd of March and then have a full in-store release on the 16th of March. My guess is that this will be a limited edition box set that doesn't get kept regularly in stock. So once these are gone, they'll be gone. It does depend on how many Games Workshop's made as to whether or not they've got enough to satisfy demand for them. It looks like the rest of the Solar Auxilia range aren't going to be following that same weekend. As with a bunch of other launch boxes, I guess they'll be following on a little bit later. I feel like there were some pretty interesting things, including the plastic Malcador tank and that new Basilisk/Medusa sculpt that we saw the other week. Both of those could have some good interest for 40k collectors. In any case, for the content that you see here, the reported price is £125, €160 or $210, kind of as expected really. If that is accurate, that will be the same price as the Legions Astartes battle group, the one with the Land Raider and the Derridio Dreadnought. As always, if you were looking to pick these up at a discount, bear in mind the various discount retailers out there. I do have a fair few affiliate ones around the world, Element Games in the UK, Fenris Workshop in Canada or Wargame Portal in the USA. These big boxes should go live on a fair few of these on Saturday as well. Though it really will depend a bit on just how much stock Games Workshop has allocated to them. They certainly aren't always all that generous. If you buy anything after clicking the links in the video description, a small amount goes to help support Allspecs Tactics, as well as saving a bit of money. I'd treat these as my first port of call and then fall back rapidly to the Games Workshop web store if it does become clear that they've really underproduced. For this video though, I thought it would be good to take a look through the contents of the box and roughly how much the savings would be. Given they've been talked about a fair bit over the past few months, I'd guess that most of you guys are fairly familiar with what the Solar Auxilia are, but in general they're roughly the equivalent of the Imperial Guard / Astra Militarum but for Heresy, a bit more elite and clad in void armour, and they can be played as either Loyalist or Traitor. As a result, there's quite a lot of kits that they have that overlaps with 40k, though some of it is slightly different or at least a different aesthetic, could make some of the kits interesting to Imperial Guard collectors or potentially some other armies that use Imperial tech. Going through the contents of the Battle Group box in turn, first up we have a section of 20 las rifles. I must admit, out of the entire Solar Auxilia launch, I do like the infantry perhaps the best. Really quite chunky and intimidating industrial pattern sort of infantry. Their void suits apparently aimed so they can fight in zero air environments. Good to get a good contingent of infantry here, and I feel like these guys in particular could have lots of applications in the 40k setting, whether you're using them as standard Imperial Guard troopers, but I think they'd do extremely well for certain cultists out there, or maybe even Genestealer cult neophytes or Brood Brothers there. Otherwise you also get an infantry command section as well, 5 models here in a fairly familiar sort of command squad style offering to what the Guard get. A few familiar things like an officer, a banner and a master vox. I guess you'd have these leading the infantry into battle. Then there's the big lumbering industrial looking sentinel that is the Ethon Heavy Sentinel. Unlike 40k versions, this one sports a big centrally mounted gun. You either get a multi-laser, that you can swap it out for a flamer, stubber, melter or volkite weapon. Plus you get 2 different choice of those side-mounted missiles. Quite a big lumbering and bulky shooting platform, this guy. One sculpt that I thought was quite fun to have in plastic was the Lehman Russ. The one in the box is technically the Lehman Russ strike tank. The difference between the two are the guns that they can mount. This one has the battle cannon, the Vanquisher cannon as pictured, the auto cannons like the Exterminator sort of pattern, and a twin las Annihilator pattern. I feel like it's kind of cool that you now have a different choice if you want to get a different sort of style of Lehman Ross for 40k purposes. Definitely big design similarities on this one, but a few other cool things that aren't quite the same as the 40k version. I do quite like the dozer blade and the little trench crossing rollbar-y sort of things at the back. The main thing to bear in mind for this one though is that as it's aimed at the Heresy range, you don't get any sponsons with this if you did want to use it for 40k purposes. I guess previously when you were paying extra points for the sponsons it wasn't such a big deal, but now you get them for free. I guess you'd be lacking firepower in 40k ones unless you converted something or had an extra set spare from somewhere. This one doesn't come with the full range of turrets as well. Things like the Demolisher Cannon and the Plasma Cannon come on the other version, not in the big box. Lastly, and the really big chunky tank of the box, is the Dracosan Transport. This one's really quite a big beast of a vehicle, able to transport a good squad of infantry around, and it also comes with the fairly terrifying option of the great big Demolisher Cannon. Pretty intimidating firepower there as it goes, and the chassis does look kind of similar to the regular Russ, but a bit longer and extended. The vehicle itself is kind of significantly bigger. Putting that all together, it looks like it's 5 kits in the box set. I'm going to assume that the Solar Auxilia las rifles will probably be sold as a squad of 20, kind of similar to the Legion tactical squads. Heresy armies tend to do squads at scale. Just putting together some estimated prices, if they did have 20 las rifles within the same unit, I'd guess that might cost around about £45 or $75, a bit cheaper than what they'd charge for the 20-man Legion tactical squads. For the command section, it seems kind of reasonable to estimate based on the Cadian command squad that they came out with for the Astra Militarum not so long ago, as I put them at £27 or $45. The Ethon Heavy Sentinel is perhaps a little bit bigger than the 40k version. I've estimated based on the Achilles Ridge Runner at £35 or $60 there. Could maybe be a little bit cheaper than that if Games Workshop do just price it the same as the Sentinel and feeling a little bit more generous than that. The Lehman Russ Strike Tank have costed the same as the equivalent 40k version, £40 or $65. And finally, I feel like the Dracosan Transport might be the biggest question mark. It's certainly a bit bigger than the Lehman Russ, so I guess would cost more, though it's a bit uncertain how much. I've put it down here at £55 or $90, as I put it the same as a Gladiator tank for the Space Marines or a standard issue repulsor tank. Maybe feels at least a little bit equivalent to that, given that it's a very big transport with some interesting firepower. I say, if anything, I might have slightly overestimated on some of the prices there, though I guess we'll see. So it might just be a slightly rosy estimate of the box's savings. Speaking of which, if you do add all of those together, the rough cost separately will be around about £202 or $335. So as per normal with these big boxes, it does at least initially look like that'd be a lot more money of models versus the cost of the box. Based on these estimates and those leaked prices, you'd expect around about £75 or $120 saving, adding up to a 38% theoretical discount if you bought all these kits separately at a later date, if the estimated prices aren't too far off. It seems unlikely that the figure would be too far from that. That's generally fairly good value if you wanted all these miniatures, at least in terms of discount by Games Workshop standards, compared with, say, the Combat Patrol box sets. The 9th edition ones were generally in the region of, say, 30 to 40%, so maybe on the upper end of that. It looks better than the 10th edition Combat Patrol sets, which generally have their discounts more in the lower sort of 20 to 25% sort of mark. Overall, if you were looking to start a Solar Auxilia army or add a bunch of interesting units for use in 40k purposes, this doesn't seem like the worst place to get them. Obviously, depending a bit on how much you want every single model, and perhaps things like capacity to resell or split boxes with other people if there's some of the miniatures that don't interest you as much as others. Either way though, while we're talking about cost of miniatures, it is good that Games Workshops released the Solar Auxilia in plastic versus the Forge World resin. The amount that you'd be expected to pay for a similar amount of models from the Solar Auxilia range from the Forge World models doesn't really bear thinking about. Typically when they change things from resin to plastic, the cost that you'd be expected to pay falls by around about half. Obviously these guys are certainly more aimed at Horus Heresy. I'm sure most people who are picking them up will be interested for that. As a 40k player though, I'm kind of interested as to the applications of these kits for 40k. Out of any of the models, I'd say the infantry are my favourites. As I said, I do like that industrial sort of look with their las rifles and the big bulky void armour. I think in particular I would seriously consider them for cultist sort of purposes. Maybe say if you were collecting Death Guard or Chaos Space Marines, I feel like the eventual price of those will probably be less per model than the standard cultists from GW currently. Could be a really interesting look for Genestealer Cult Brood Brothers infantry squads as well. I feel like the industrial look goes quite well alongside the more standard Genestealer Cult mining type setup. Otherwise though, as mentioned, I think the Leman Russ is a fun Heresy era aesthetic though for an Astra Militarum army. The Heavy Sentinel perhaps could be used as an armoured Sentinel. The command section could be more infantry, or just literally used as something like a guard command squad, or perhaps a dark commune at a push for the Chaos Space Marines. Might need a little bit of conversion and kit bashing there. Out of any of them, perhaps the thing that doesn't translate quite as well is the Dracosan tank. I guess for the guard, the nearest thing might be the Leman Russ Demolisher, though it is a bit bigger, or maybe a Malkador Defender with a bit of conversion work to add some heavy bolters to it. I guess for Chaos Marines, the Demolisher could make it at least somewhat similar to a Vindicator, though again, it does have a very different aesthetic. Overall, I would say that maybe the big combined offering isn't quite as easy to use for Warhammer 40k compared with picking up some individual kits when they release separately. Unless you have something really specific in mind, or just really like all the models and want to paint them up, you might be better off just waiting for the individual releases, say picking up some infantry if you want them, or the Leman Russ if you want a sort of relic version alongside your 40k forces. In any case, let me know what you think of the box set, its contents, and the price. Look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. And as mentioned, when they go live on pre-order day, feel free to check out the channel affiliates. Kind of depends on Games Workshop's generosity for the stock that they get, but could be worth a look before going to Games Workshop's web store, just to get the same thing but for less money. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming. I do tend to post new ones every day, either talking about Games Workshop's model tactics or their new releases. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep all these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.